What happens when an isolated colony on a distant planet loses all contact with Earth? When the familiar rules of reality begin to unravel, and the very fabric of human sanity is tested by forces beyond comprehension. This is a story of survival, betrayal, and the unknown, a tale where the line between science and the supernatural blurs into chaos. Follow the harrowing journey of a group of colonists as they face not only the harshness of an alien world, but also the darkness within themselves. Strange phenomena, inexplicable disappearances, and a growing sense of dread will keep you on the edge of your seat. Will they uncover the truth before it consumes them all? Or will their fate be lost to the stars forever? Subscribe now for more thrilling stories and let us know in the comments. If you were stranded on a distant planet, would you trust your fellow colonists or fear them? The colony on Eos 7 was supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement, a beacon of progress on the frontier of the unknown. Nestled in the shadow of towering crystalline mountains, the settlement thrived under artificial domes that glimmered faintly against the pale lavender sky. For years, life had been predictable, almost mundane. Supplies arrived regularly from Earth, communication links hummed with updates, and the colonists worked together to build a new home among the stars. But then, one day, the silence came. It started subtly, a delayed transmission here, a garbled message there. Then, without warning, all contact ceased. The vast expanse of space between Eos 7 and Earth became an impenetrable void, leaving the colonists adrift in isolation. At first, they tried to rationalize it. Solar flares, equipment malfunctions, even sabotage, every possibility was considered. Teams of engineers worked tirelessly to restore the connection, but their efforts yielded nothing. Weeks turned into months, and hope began to erode like sand slipping through clenched fingers. The once bustling colony grew quieter, its inhabitants retreating into themselves as uncertainty took root. Yet, amidst this growing unease, something else stirred, something no one could explain. It began with small things. Tools misplaced, only to reappear hours later in places no one had been. Lights flickering in patterns too deliberate to be random. Shadows moving just out of sight, vanishing when approached. At night, some claimed to hear whispers carried on the thin, metallic wind that swept across the barren plains outside the domes. These accounts were dismissed at first: fatigue, stress, overactive imaginations. But the occurrences grew harder to ignore. One engineer swore he saw his own reflection in a blank monitor, staring back at him with hollow eyes. A botanist reported finding crops wilting overnight despite perfect environmental conditions. And then there were the dreams. They came to everyone differently, yet shared a common thread. Visions of endless corridors bathed in cold light, voices speaking in languages no one recognized, sensations of being watched by unseen eyes. Upon waking, the colonists felt disoriented, as though fragments of those dreams lingered in their minds like half-remembered memories. Fear began to spread, subtle at first, but gaining momentum with each passing day. Trust, already fragile in the wake of their isolation, started to fracture. The council meetings, once efficient and focused, devolved into tense exchanges filled with accusations and paranoia. Some believed the phenomena were natural anomalies, quirks of the alien environment they had yet to understand. Others argued that sabotage was to blame, pointing fingers at those who seemed overly secretive or withdrawn. A faction emerged, led by a former military officer named Callan, advocating for strict control measures, curfews, surveillance, even confinement for those deemed unstable. Opposing them was Dr. Alara Voss, the colony's chief scientist, who insisted on investigating the phenomena scientifically rather than succumbing to fear. Tensions escalated when resources began disappearing. Food stores dwindled faster than expected, tools went missing, and vital equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Rumors circulated about thieves operating within the colony, exploiting the chaos for personal gain. Fights broke out in the communal areas, tempers flaring as desperation mounted. The dome walls, once symbols of safety, now felt like prison bars trapping them in a nightmare they couldn't escape. Unity, the cornerstone of their survival, crumbled under the weight of mistrust and fear. It was Jace Marlowe, a hydroponics technician, who vanished first. He had been working late, tending to the algae tanks that provided oxygen for the colony. When his absence was noticed the next morning, a search party scoured every inch of the facility. They found no trace of him, no footprints, no dropped belongings, nothing to suggest where he might have gone. The doors had been sealed from the inside, and the security cameras showed only static during the hours leading up to his disappearance. Panic rippled through the colony like a shockwave. Some whispered of abduction, others of desertion. A few dared to entertain darker theories, that whatever force was behind the strange occurrences had taken him. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. Phrases in incomprehensible tongues echoed through the halls, accompanied by faint footsteps that stopped just short of detection. Sleep became elusive, replaced by restless vigilance. The colonists huddled together in groups, seeking comfort in numbers, yet unable to shake the feeling that they were being watched. As fear tightened its grip, the colony splintered further. Callan's faction grew bolder, enforcing curfews and patrolling the corridors with makeshift weapons. They accused Dr. Voss and her supporters of negligence, claiming their insistence on scientific inquiry was delaying necessary action. In turn, Dr. Voss condemned Callan's methods as oppressive, arguing that turning on each other would only hasten their downfall. Arguments erupted daily, drawing lines so stark that families found themselves divided. Children clung to their parents, confused and frightened by the adults' anger. Amidst the turmoil, strange markings began appearing on the walls, symbols etched into the metal surfaces with precision that defied human tools. No one admitted to making them, and attempts to remove them proved futile. The marks reappeared overnight, spreading like a creeping plague. Some interpreted them as warnings, others as invitations. Whatever their meaning, they served as a constant reminder that the colonists were not alone. Dr. Alara Voss spent sleepless nights studying the symbols, cross-referencing them with ancient languages archived in the colony's database. Her breakthrough came unexpectedly. A fragment of a pattern matched glyphs found in ruins on Earth, remnants of civilizations long extinct. These markings, she discovered, were not random but part of a complex system tied to celestial movements. They seemed to predict alignments between Eos 7's twin suns and a distant nebula. Yet, what unnerved her most was their recurring theme: cycles of destruction and rebirth. Her findings sparked both intrigue and skepticism. Some colonists rallied around her theory, clinging to the hope that understanding these patterns might offer salvation. Others dismissed it as irrelevant, accusing her of chasing shadows while real dangers loomed closer. Meanwhile, the phenomena intensified. Equipment failures became frequent, plunging sections of the colony into darkness. The air filtration systems faltered intermittently, filling the domes with an acrid tang that burned throats and stung eyes. It was as though the environment itself conspired against them. One evening, during a rare moment of calm, Dr. Voss noticed something peculiar. The symbols glowed faintly under ultraviolet light, forming constellations that shifted when viewed from different angles. She realized they weren't static, they were alive, responding to changes within the colony. This discovery chilled her to the bone. If the symbols adapted, then whatever created them was aware of their presence. The atmosphere grew heavier with each passing day. Colonists reported seeing figures darting at the edges of their vision, silhouettes that vanished when approached. At first, these sightings were isolated incidents, easily dismissed as tricks of the mind. But soon, entire groups claimed to witness the same apparitions, moving with purpose through the dimly lit corridors. Panic reached new heights when one of Callan's patrols cornered one such figure only to find empty space where it should have been. Tensions boiled over when supplies disappeared again, this time accompanied by eerie claw-like scratches gouged into storage containers. Accusations flew wildly. Everyone suspected everyone else. A botanist named Lyra claimed she saw someone tampering with the algae tanks late at night. When confronted, the accused vehemently denied any wrongdoing, pointing instead to inconsistencies in Lyra's own behavior. Trust evaporated entirely, replaced by paranoia so thick it choked the air. In the midst of this chaos, Dr. Voss made another unsettling observation. The glowing symbols now appeared not just on walls but also on skin, faint traces etched onto the flesh of those who ventured too close to certain areas of the colony. No one spoke of it openly, yet whispers circulated about possession or contamination. Fear morphed into hysteria, driving some colonists to barricade themselves in quarters while others roamed aimlessly, muttering fragmented prayers. Callan, once a pillar of authority, began unraveling under the strain. His nightly patrols grew erratic, his orders increasingly irrational. He insisted on sealing off entire sections of the colony, claiming they were compromised. Supplies dwindled further as access to vital resources became restricted. Those who questioned his decisions faced harsh reprimands, sometimes even physical force. Rumors spread that he had begun carrying a device capable of emitting high-frequency sounds said to repel the shadowy figures haunting the halls. But Callan's methods came at a cost. Isolated incidents of violence erupted among his followers, fueled by exhaustion and mistrust. One patrol member turned on another after mistaking him for one of the apparitions. Blood stained the floor of the medical bay, a grim reminder of how far they had fallen. Even Callan himself wasn't immune to the creeping madness. Witnesses reported seeing him speak to empty corners of rooms, his voice low and urgent, as though engaged in conversation with unseen entities. Despite his deteriorating state, many still clung to him out of fear rather than loyalty. Without leadership, they believed the colony would descend into complete anarchy. Yet, the more power Callan wielded, the more unstable he became. His obsession with rooting out betrayal led to increasingly draconian measures, alienating even his staunchest supporters. Dr. Voss knew time was running out. The symbols continued spreading, their glow intensifying with each cycle of the twin suns. She theorized they were markers, not warnings, but invitations extended by whatever intelligence governed the planet. To test her hypothesis, she devised a dangerous experiment. Using the colony's remaining power reserves, she constructed a makeshift beacon designed to mimic the patterns of the glowing glyphs. If her calculations were correct, activating it would either reveal the source of the phenomena or drive it away. Her plan met fierce resistance. Callan denounced it as reckless, arguing it could attract whatever malevolent force already plagued them. Others feared it might trigger catastrophic consequences, destabilizing the fragile ecosystem keeping them alive. Undeterred, Dr. Voss pressed forward, recruiting a small team of volunteers willing to take the risk. Among them was Kale, a young engineer whose pragmatism balanced her idealism. On the night of the activation, the colony gathered in tense silence. As the beacon hummed to life, its pulsating light synchronized with the symbols adorning the walls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground trembled violently, and a deafening roar echoed through the domes. The air shimmered, distorting reality like heat waves rising from desert sands. And then, abruptly, everything stopped. When the dust settled, Dr. Voss lay unconscious beside the deactivated beacon. Her team stood frozen, staring at something or someone none dared describe. What emerged defied comprehension. It was neither human nor machine, neither solid nor ephemeral. Its form shifted constantly, flickering between states of existence like a hologram caught in a feedback loop. Too many eyes, stared out from its amorphous body, each reflecting emotions that ranged from curiosity to malice. It radiated an aura of overwhelming intelligence, yet its intentions remained inscrutable. The entity moved without sound, gliding effortlessly through the colony. Wherever it passed, the symbols flared brighter, pulsing in rhythm with its presence. Colonists dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by waves of emotion flooding their minds. Awe, terror, despair, and fleeting glimpses of profound understanding. Some wept uncontrollably, others laughed hysterically. None could look away. Dr. Voss regained consciousness just as the entity paused before her. She felt no fear, only a deep sense of recognition, as if she had always known it existed, waiting beyond the veil of perception. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand toward it. The entity mirrored her gesture, extending a tendril-like appendage that hovered inches from her palm. In that instant, clarity struck her like lightning. The symbols weren't messages, they were keys, unlocking pathways to realms beyond mortal comprehension. The entity communicated not through words, but sensations, images flashing across minds, emotions resonating like chords struck on an invisible instrument. Through this cacophony, Dr. Voss pieced together fragments of its purpose. EOS 7 was a nexus, a point of convergence for forces older than galaxies. The colonists' arrival had disrupted delicate balances, awakening dormant energies seeking equilibrium. To restore harmony, sacrifices must be made. Sacrifices not of lives, but of essence. Memories, dreams, identities, all would be absorbed into the entity, woven into its eternal tapestry. Those who accepted this exchange would gain knowledge unimaginable, transcending the limitations of mortality. Those who refused would fade, erased from existence as though they had never been. Dr. Voss relayed this revelation to the colony, her voice trembling with equal parts fear and wonder. Reactions varied wildly. Some embraced the prospect of transcendence, eager to escape the confines of their frail bodies. Others recoiled in horror, unwilling to surrender pieces of themselves to an unknowable being. Arguments erupted anew, fiercer than ever, as individuals grappled with choices that defied logic. Callan, however, saw opportunity. If the entity demanded essence, why not offer the essences of those least valuable? He proposed selecting volunteers, criminals, dissenters, anyone deemed expendable, to appease the entity and secure the colony's survival. His suggestion ignited outrage, splitting the community along lines sharper than any blade. The debate raged for days, tearing apart what little cohesion remained. Families argued over whether to stay or flee deeper into the colony's sealed-off sections. Friends turned against friends, alliances shattered by conflicting beliefs. Amidst the turmoil, the entity lingered silently, observing with detached curiosity. Its mere presence exacerbated tensions, amplifying emotions until reason crumbled beneath their weight. One fateful night, violence erupted. A faction loyal to Callan stormed the central hub where Dr. Voss and her supporters had gathered. What began as a confrontation escalated into a full-blown riot, fists colliding with flesh, tools repurposed as weapons. Chaos reigned supreme as screams filled the air, echoing off metal walls slick with condensation. In the midst of the carnage, the entity intervened. With a single pulse of energy, it immobilized every combatant, freezing them mid-motion like statues trapped in amber. Then, it spoke, not audibly, but directly into their minds. The message was clear: choose wisely, for indecision invited annihilation. When movement returned, the survivors stared at one another, shaken to their course. With no other options left, Dr. Voss proposed a compromise. A lottery would determine who would step forward, ensuring fairness, or as close to it as possible under the circumstances. Each colonist placed their name into a container, knowing full well the stakes. Tensions mounted as names were drawn one by one, each selection met with cries of relief or anguish. As fate decreed, 12 individuals volunteered or were chosen to face the entity. Among them were Kale, whose steady hands had built the beacon, and Lyra, whose courage belied her quiet demeanor. Standing before the shimmering mass, they clasped hands, drawing strength from shared resolve. One by one, they approached the entity, offering fragments of themselves willingly. The transformation was instantaneous. Eyes glazed over, expressions softened, and bodies slumped as though released from burdens too heavy to bear. When the process ended, the 12 stood tall, exuding an aura of serenity foreign to their former selves. They spoke of visions vast and incomprehensible, of unity spanning galaxies and epochs. Yet, behind their placid smiles lurked shadows of loss, the price paid for enlightenment. Life within the colony changed irrevocably. The entity vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind silence broken only by the hum of machinery. Those who had undergone the transformation became mediators of sorts, guiding the remaining colonists through the aftermath. Their insights proved invaluable, helping stabilize systems and restore order. Yet, despite their newfound wisdom, they remained distant, their thoughts adrift in realms others couldn't perceive. For the rest, survival took precedence. Resources were rationed carefully, repairs prioritized, and efforts redoubled to maintain the fragile ecosystem sustaining them. Though scars lingered, both visible and invisible, the colony endured. Bonds rebuilt slowly, forged stronger by shared trials. Yet, questions lingered. Had they truly secured their future, or merely postponed inevitable reckoning? What awaited humanity beyond the stars, and what role did they play in the grand design? Answers eluded them, shrouded in mysteries too profound to unravel. Years later, explorers from Earth finally arrived, guided by faint signals emitted by the colony's automated distress beacon. What they found astonished them. The settlement stood intact, thriving despite decades of isolation. Descendants of the original colonists greeted them warmly, sharing tales of resilience and sacrifice. Yet, amidst stories of hardship and triumph, one legend stood apart, that of the 12 who walked among stars, their spirits forever intertwined with the cosmos. Subscribe now for more captivating tales of adventure and discovery, and let us know in the comments. Would you have stepped forward to offer your essence to the entity, or would you have resisted? Your thoughts matter.